Hi everyone, Megan here from Beguiled by Books, and today I'm going to share with you 5 nonfiction books that just don't hold up anymore. Let's get started. Okay, so you may or may not know that I have a decent following on my website for starting a workplace book club. So one of the things I specialize in is working with companies and working with people to help them start book clubs, especially book clubs in the workplace. And over time, we, of course, get new books, we get new business and organizational leadership books, all kinds of great things. And as society grows and changes, newer books are potentially more relevant, and sometimes older books don't hold up anymore. These are those 5 books that I think no longer hold up, but are still really celebrated in certain circles that I think we just need to not do that anymore. So the first book that doesn't really hold up anymore is The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor. I read this recently for the first time. I'd never heard of this book. I read it in August. It was recommended by my workplace and published in 2010. It's really missed the last decade of social change and societal change that we've been through with the social justice movements and the DEI movements in the workplace. And it just really falls flat. The premise is if your employees have a positive mental attitude, you'll get more revenue. And with millennials and Gen Z in the workforce now, that just doesn't make sense. That's not what the generational shift wants anymore. A positive mental attitude and more profits. That is very clearly not what young people want. So I don't think that book really holds up anymore. And it just doesn't do it for me and won't be one I recommend. The next book that I don't think holds up anymore for a workplace book club in the nonfiction space is the 5 a.m. Club. This book is very celebrated for entrepreneurs, and you still see stuff on Instagram and even YouTube about if you really want to take the world by storm, you got to get up at 5 a.m. and the hours between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. are the most critical for getting your work done. And this is the golden hours where you can do all this wonderful stuff and beat your competition because they're not up at 5 a.m. doing the things that you're doing and working out and running an hour on the treadmill. Again, we have grown as a society. We know that there are different people who have different circadian rhythms, and that we know those people with different circadian rhythms have evolved that way so we can stay in that tribe-like state. So there's very little overlap in the nighttime. When you know someone who stays up till 2 or 3 in the morning naturally, but you might go to bed at 8 p.m., that's intentional in our evolution and our DNA so that we can make sure there's only a limited window of nighttime where predators can attack us in our hunter-gatherer tribes. So why are we trying to make people who stay up until 3 a.m. and get up at 11 a.m. fit this mold of a 5 a.m. entrepreneur? It doesn't make sense. Let people work the hours they want to work, especially if they're entrepreneurs, and stop trying to fit people into a specific box. Doesn't make sense anymore. We've learned, we know better, we can do better now. The next book that doesn't really hold up anymore, I think, is the Checklist Manifesto. I remember when this book came out, it was getting rave reviews. People were going nuts. Oh, the Checklist Manifesto is so revolutionary. So when I read it, I was expecting to, again, be blown away. And to me, it's a bit of common sense. Perhaps that's just my experience speaking. Of course, this is just one person's opinion. The premise of the Checklist Manifesto is that when you have something you need to perform over and over again, you have a specific set of tasks. The author goes through surgery and flying a plane and other really critical things that you cannot afford any errors in, and having a specific checklist. I do not disagree that life and death choices, you need to eliminate as much human error as possible. That will always be true. However, I don't know if that has ever really translated into being a content creator or an entrepreneur. People make mistakes. Limiting the mistakes is important, but a checklist is not always the best thing to do. And again, we have now learned that folks on the spectrum, folks with neurodivergent tendencies, lists might not be helpful because that's not something they're going to consult every time. They're not going to remember every time. There are a lot of different elements there. And I don't know that the Checklist Manifesto encompasses enough different viewpoints and enough different types of thinking to really be successful and hold up now. The next book that I don't think really holds up anymore, and this one I'm super on the fence about, is The 48 Laws of Power. I've talked about this before a little bit. I don't like this book. I think it's super straight white male corporate America focused, but unfortunately, corporate America is still very super straight white male focused. So a lot of your typical guys in that environment are going to know about the 48 Laws of Power. They might embrace it. They might actively want to incorporate more of them into their personality and their working style. I think it's a book one should be aware of, and you should know about it so that when you encounter someone like that, you know where their thought processes are coming from. So I don't think it holds up. I don't think the 48 Laws of Power are things that we as a society should aspire to by any stretch of the imagination. We should not be coaching towards those behaviors, but they are still very present in our day-to-day that we need to be aware of and know what we're dealing with in the workplace. The last book that I think doesn't really hold up anymore in the nonfiction space is Lean In. Lean In, when it came out, was super revelatory for especially a lot of women, and I don't want to discount that at all. But I think now, all these years later, there are better books that better encompass what it's like to be a woman in the workplace. Sheryl Sandberg, who wrote Lean In, Chief Operations Officer at Facebook, she essentially called out some super basic things about being a woman to a young male executive, and we've gotten better than that in the last decade. So I think it's important that a lot of places maybe haven't, but a lot of places have gotten better, and we have to strive not just for bare minimum, but being equal in the workplace as women. And Lean In is a step towards that, but I don't think it doesn't really touch on the full story of true equality in the workplace. It still represents, women working into the evening after the kids are in bed and, fitting more working time around your life rather than having better boundaries and not working as much and working smarter and more efficiently in the workplace. So those are my 5 books that I just don't think hold up anymore. I don't recommend them for the workplace book clubs when I share them. And when I help people start workplace book clubs, I'd really love to know, what are some books, either fiction or nonfiction, that you don't think hold up anymore? I'd really love to know. Drop a comment below. If you like this video and you like this content, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all next time.